At a powerful tech firm, a black teen girl drops by after school to see her father, a janitor. The smug CEO, amused by her curiosity, dares her to fix a failed multi-million-dollar engine. Engineers smirk, until she calmly unzips her backpack, makes a few quick tweaks, and the engine roars to life. What seems like a viral moment soon reveals something darker. A buried scandal, a stolen invention, and an erased legacy, and this girl might be the one to expose it all. Before we dive in this story, let us know where you're watching from. We love to hear your thoughts. Indianapolis, Indiana. The sun hung low over the skyline, casting long golden streaks across the chrome-plated headquarters of Vanguard Motors, a place where machines were worshipped and people were measured by their utility. On the 26th floor, behind fingerprint-locked elevators and tinted security doors, the innovation chamber buzzed with nervous energy. The space gleamed like a surgical theater. White marble floors without a single scuff, walls of soundproof glass, and overhead lights so bright they seemed to interrogate the people beneath them. In the center of the room, like a dead god on display, sat the V8 TZ prototype, a revolutionary electric engine that had cost the company millions. And yet, despite all its glory, the damn thing wouldn't start. A group of engineers circled it like vultures, pretending to be surgeons. Arms crossed, faces tight, eyes avoiding Richard Langford, the man who had summoned them all. Langford didn't just command the room, he owned it. Every inch of space, every heartbeat of every employee ticked to his liking. Dressed in a navy suit that cost more than most people's cars, his silver hair slicked back like a news anchor from hell, he paced in silence, radiating disappointment like heat. 3 weeks. He growled, his voice slicing through the room like a blade. 3 weeks. 30 of you. Ivy League degrees, stock options, and none of you can figure out why my engine won't breathe? No one answered. They never did when he was like this. The silence wasn't empty, it was terrified. Langford's lips curled into a smile, but there was no humor in it. His gaze drifted across the room, then locked onto a figure near the back. A man hunched over a mop, his movements precise, unbothered. Ernest Barlow. The janitor. Black, late 50s, eyes that had seen too much. Shoulders that had carried more than just buckets and brooms. Langford's smirk widened, like a predator catching scent. And maybe, he said, voice raised just enough for the whole room to hear, we should ask the help if he's got an idea. Hell, maybe his daughter wants to give it a shot. Heads turned. In the doorway stood a girl, skin the color of polished mahogany, tall for her age, maybe 16. A worn backpack dangled from one shoulder, patched with fabric and duct tape. Her sneakers were clean, but clearly second-hand. Her eyes, dark, alert, widened slightly at the sudden attention. She got here a little early, Langford continued, mock sympathetic. Came to see her daddy mop the floor. But who knows, maybe she's got the magic touch. What do you think, sweetheart? His voice shifted, dripping with condescension. Want to try fixing what these overpaid morons can't? The room didn't laugh. Not right away. There was a split second of shocked stillness. Then, like a match-catching wind, the laughter came, low, cruel, knowing, not loud, but cutting, the kind that wasn't meant to be funny, just to humiliate. Talia didn't move. Her knuckles whitened around the strap of her backpack. She blinked once, slowly, but didn't flinch. Ernest turned, quiet horror flickering in his eyes. Mr. Langford, he said cautiously, his voice steady but tight, she's not. I'm talking to her, Ernest, Langford snapped, not even looking at him. Unless you're afraid she's going to embarrass herself. Or is it you're trying to protect? Don't worry, son, we all know what you people are good at, sweeping, not science. That hit like a slap. A few of the younger engineers shifted uncomfortably, but no one spoke. No one ever spoke. Talia inhaled, slow and quiet. Her stomach twisted, not from shame, but fury. A sharp, acidic kind, the kind that doesn't rise with shouting but hardens into resolve. Her voice, when it came, was low and even. Can I touch it? The laughter paused. A few engineers exchanged glances. Phones were already up, discreet but recording. They expected a train wreck, something to chuckle about later over drinks. Langford grinned like a game show host. "By all means, sweetheart. Show us how it's done." Talia stepped forward, the click of her soles echoing on the polished floor. Every eye followed her. But she didn't flinch, not once. The daughter of a janitor, walking through a room built to keep her out, toward a machine that had shamed every man in that room, and though no one knew it yet, that was the moment everything changed. Talia reached the engine, her fingers brushing the steel casing like it was sacred. Gentle, deliberate. The room leaned in, breaths held not out of respect, but curiosity laced with mockery. She set her backpack down on the pristine floor with a dull thud. The sound echoed louder than expected, a jarring intrusion into the sterile silence. Then, with calm precision, she knelt beside it and unzipped the bag. Out came a weathered notebook, its cover frayed, its spine taped together like a survivor of war. She opened it with care, flipping past pages of dense mechanical sketches, hand-drawn schematics, notes scrawled in blue ink, math equations curling into the margins. An engineer near the back squinted, then nudged his colleague. "That looks like our thermal layout," he whispered, suddenly uneasy. "That exact design." She didn't look up. Her hands moved quickly, unfastening a panel that none of the staff had even thought to check. A few eyebrows lifted, then she withdrew a small component from her pocket, a capacitor, modified, marked by her initials. "She carries components in her bag," someone muttered. A few nervous chuckles rippled around, but they died quickly. Talia's eyes were sharp now, focused, unshaken. Whatever fear had been there before had burned away in the fire of something deeper, muscle memory, instinct, blood knowledge. Her movements were neither hesitant nor theatrical. They were the movements of someone who had done this 100 times before. As if she had built this very engine with her own hands, in a basement no one ever visited. She replaced the faulty capacitor with her own, sealed the panel, wiped a smear of oil across her jeans, and stepped back. "Try it now," she said. Her voice was low, but there was a quiet authority in it that hadn't been there before. Not a command, but not a suggestion either. The lead technician, a man who had smirked earlier, now looked unsure. Still, he pressed the ignition button. The engine didn't just start, it came alive. A low hum turned into a steady pulse, rich and resonant, like a heartbeat amplified through the walls. Perfect, smooth, no lag, no stall. The same machine that had defied every expert now purred like it was grateful to be understood. No one moved. For 10 full seconds, the room stood frozen. Hands half raised, eyes wide, jaws slack. Phones lowered. Faces shifted from disbelief to something closer to fear. Langford's face turned pale. He didn't speak. His body stiffened, jaw clenched so tightly the veins in his temple pulsed. But Talia? She just took a step back, pulled her notebook close to her chest and wiped the grease from her fingers with a sleeve of her hoodie. Her hands trembled again, but not from nerves. This was something else. Something bigger. Because in that moment what she had feared most had already happened. The truth was out. The thing she had hidden for years, her mind, her skill, her legacy, had just exposed itself to the very people who would rather mock her than ever imagine she was the one holding the missing piece. The silence in the room deepened, not stunned, not confused, but reverent, unsettled. Then slowly a sound emerged, a clap, just one, from a young technician near the back. Eyes wet, face unreadable. Then another joined in, but it wasn't applause. It was awe. It was disbelief. It was the sound of walls cracking. Langford raised a hand to stop them. His voice, when it finally came, had lost its edge. "Who are you?" Talia didn't answer at first. Her gaze flicked to her father. Ernest, who stood completely still, mop in hand, his face etched with dread and something older. Grief. Pain. Secrets long buried. She turned back to Langford. Her voice was quiet but steady. "I'm just someone who loves engines." But the room knew there was more, much more. The hum of the engine still vibrated through the walls, but inside the room it was her words that echoed louder. "I'm just someone who loves engines." That wasn't enough for Langford. His eyes narrowed. He stepped forward, notebook still in her hands, and barked, "That design in your book, where did you get it?" His tone snapped back into its usual bark, desperate to reclaim control. "That's internal property, proprietary layouts. You expect us to believe you just happened to draw that?" Talia held his stare. Her voice didn't flinch. "I didn't draw that." She opened the notebook again and flipped past the engine diagram to a page filled with an alternate design. "This is mine. The one you used is just a weaker version." The words landed like a hammer. Laughter bubbled up again, but it was forced this time, short, brittle, unsure. One engineer scoffed. "You saying you designed a $4 million 0-cents prototype when you were, what, 13? He was trying to sound dismissive, but his voice cracked on the last word. Celia didn't smile. "I never said I designed your prototype. I said I designed mine. Yours copied it." Gasps spread like wildfire. A few heads whipped toward each other. And then Ernest moved. He stepped forward, not quickly, but with the weight of something long overdue. His voice trembled, but it cut through the room like ice. "We should go," he said softly to Talia. "No," Langford shot back, his voice rising in panic. "You're not going anywhere." Talia met his eyes, steel behind hers. "Are you detaining us?" The room tensed. Phones rose again, silently capturing the moment. Langford hesitated, suddenly aware of how quickly this had spiraled out of his grasp. He stepped back, mouth open, but no words came. Then Ernest cleared his throat, louder this time. His voice cracked, not from weakness, but from holding something in too long. "You don't need to talk," he said. "You need to listen." Langford froze. The room turned. "There was a woman here once," Ernest began, his eyes locked on Langford's. "Brilliant, dangerous only because she was better than the rest of you." His throat tightened. "Her name was Nadine Carter. She was my wife. And she's Talia's mother." A dead name, spoken like a resurrection. Langford's eyes widened, just slightly, but enough. Talia's hands clenched the notebook, as if holding her mother close through ink and memory. Ernest continued, voice rough. "She designed the first version of this engine years before any of your people touched it. She was supposed to lead the team, but someone got nervous. Said she was unstable, that she was too ambitious, and when she tried to file a complaint about stolen research," his voice dropped. "They said there was an accident in the lab, that she never made it out. But I never believed that. I still don't." The room stood silent, gripped by something colder than shock recognition. "I took what was left of her," Ernest said, voice nearly breaking. "Our daughter, her notes, her mind, and I ran. I kept quiet for 15 years, sweeping floors in the same building that buried her brilliance." A senior engineer near the monitors, older, with gray in his beard, looked down at his shoes. "I remember her," he said quietly. "I was new, but I remember how fast her projects disappeared. They locked everything down. She vanished overnight." Another voice, this time from a woman with a Stratton badge pinned to her chest, trembled as she spoke. "She taught one of my first trainings. I never saw anyone who could design propulsion systems in their head like her, like it was music." Langford's hands tightened around the notebook. He flipped through the pages, reading the annotations, the math, the drawings. Every page a ghost, every page a lie revealed. His voice returned, low and bitter. "Why now? Why bring this up now? What's your angle?" Talia stepped forward, her face calm but her eyes blazing. "I didn't plan to. I wasn't trying to make a scene. But you made a joke out of me, out of my father, out of what my mother built. You pointed me at your broken engine thinking I'd fail, and I fixed it because it's in my blood, because I've been living in her shadow my whole life. But now that the truth is here, I won't walk away from it." Ernest placed a hand on her shoulder again, but she gently moved it aside. She wasn't hiding behind anyone anymore. "I thought silence would protect us," she said, her voice steady. "But silence is what let her die. If even one person in this room remembers her, wonders what really happened, they deserve to hear this." The storm was no longer building. It had landed. The words had barely settled into the charged air when a hand rose slowly in the crowd. It was Leonard Grant, the senior systems engineer with a voice no one had heard in years. His face was tight with regret, lips trembling slightly. "I was here," he said, voice hoarse, "when they pulled her files, when the project was reassigned under a different name. I didn't say anything." He swallowed hard, guilt folding his shoulders forward like a man under weight. "None of us did." Talia turned toward him. Her expression didn't harden, didn't soften either. She simply nodded once. Not in forgiveness, not yet. Just acknowledgement. The truth had begun to surface, and it would not go back into hiding. Another voice followed, Donna Reese, lead design engineer, her badge glinting in the artificial light. "She taught me everything," she said. "I was 22. I still remember her laughing in the test bay. She had ideas no one else could even grasp." Her voice cracked. "And then one day she was just gone. They told us it was nothing, that she burned out, that she was unstable." She looked at Langford now. "We believed them." Langford's face twitched. He glanced around, but the room was no longer his. The circle had shifted. His engineers, his loyalists, stood still, eyes glazed with confusion, shame, awakening. Trying to pull the reins back, Langford laughed, sharp and brittle. "So what now? You think this changes anything? You think a teenager with a notebook and a sob story is going to rewrite history?" He looked around for backup, but found none. "You think you're someone now?" Talia didn't move. Her voice, quiet but piercing, cut through the tension. "You know what makes someone matter? Not power, not a title, not a badge. Truth." She raised her phone, screen still recording, the red dot blinking like a beacon. "And I have it. Video, audio, your voice, your threats, your mockery. Every word you said in this room, from the moment you humiliated us, is saved." Langford's jaw locked. "You recorded?" "Everything," she said, "and it's already uploading." There was a long beat. Then Donna pulled off her badge and dropped it to the floor with a sharp clink. The sound echoed. A moment later, Leonard did the same. Then, another. And another. A cascade of ID tags hit the marble, metal and plastic falling like coins onto a grave. Langford's eyes darted, frantic now. His voice cracked as he tried to regain command. "Don't be fools. None of this will hold. You think they'll believe a girl over a corporation? You think the board will back you?" His tone had shifted, no longer condescending, but pleading, brittle, desperate. Ernest stepped forward, voice calm and devastating. "It's not your company anymore." He looked at the sea of engineers, the turned backs, the eyes no longer looking to Langford for leadership. "It never really was." Langford let out a bitter laugh, but there was no confidence in it. "Do you really think this will stick? This little protest, this moment of drama? Do you think the world will care tomorrow?" Talia didn't answer. She didn't have to. Her phone buzzed once. The upload was complete. Then, from the back of the room, the main monitor flickered to life. Someone had connected the live stream to the screen. The video played, Langford's voice mocking her, calling her the help, daring her to try. The room caught on tape. The laughter, the sneers, her fixing the engine, the truth spilling like light in a locked room. They watched themselves and they looked ashamed. Outside, down in the building's atrium, employees had gathered. Word had spread. Some had already begun forwarding the video. Others were recording the monitors, sharing it live, on Slack channels, on social media, on news tips. The clip spread like lightning. Back in the break room, Talia and Ernest sat in silence. The vending machine hummed softly beside them, but the rest of the floor was still. Ernest stared at the linoleum, barely breathing. "I never thought it would actually come to this," he whispered. Talia didn't look up. "I didn't either," she said. "I just wanted to meet you after school." But then he laughed, and I realized I wasn't just my mother's daughter. She paused, her fingers tracing the notebook's spine. I was her voice, and it was time someone finally spoke. Before Ernest could respond, a sound echoed from the elevator lobby. Sharp, deliberate knocks. Not frantic, not rushed, controlled. Then came the men in navy jackets with golden letters, Federal Investigation Bureau of Science. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. They went straight to the elevator. No one stopped them. The engineers parted silently as the doors closed behind them, rising to the top floor, to the corner office where Richard Langford had once ruled without question. 20 minutes later, the elevator chimed, the doors slid open, and Richard Langford stepped out in handcuffs. His suit was still pressed, his tie still straight, but his face was a collapsed empire. Cameras flashed, reporters shouted, no one made room for him, no one shielded him. He was walked straight through the heart of the company he once ruled like a king, now a prisoner of his own arrogance. In the lobby, employees stared. Some clapped, some cried, most just stood, silently watching the fall of a man who had thought himself untouchable. Leonard stood near the monitors, his badge long gone, eyes rimmed red. Donna typed steadily, uploading the last of the archived files. Every internal memo, every redacted project, every timeline that proved the theft. She sent them all to investigative journalists who were already waiting. Outside, beneath the stone arch of Vanguard Motors' front steps, Talia stood beside her father. They didn't speak. They just watched the black SUV pull away with Langford inside. The crowd shifted around them, still unsure what to say, what this moment meant. Ernest finally turned to her. "They're waiting," he said softly. "You should say something." Talia stepped forward, the city noise dulling as the crowd held its breath. "My mother," she said, voice clear but filled with quiet steel, "gave her life to build something beautiful. They tried to bury her work, they tried to erase her name. But truth doesn't stay buried forever. It rises, even if it takes years, even if it takes her daughter." A hush swept the crowd. Some wept, others simply nodded. The reporters said nothing. They just filmed, knowing this was no longer news. It was history. Just then, a limousine pulled up to the curb. The crowd instinctively parted. The door opened, and out stepped a tall woman wrapped in an emerald coat, her silver hair catching the light. Her heels clicked slowly against the pavement. She looked around, then locked eyes with Talia. The moment their gazes met, the world seemed to narrow. "Grandma?" Talia whispered. Olivia Carter approached with a tremble in her voice. "Talia." She reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. Old letters, newspaper clippings, photos, sketches. "I kept everything, every piece of your mother they tried to erase." Her voice broke. "I never stopped waiting for this day." Talia took her hand, and in that touch, decades of silence cracked. They stood together, legacy and future, the generations that refused to vanish. A man in a federal suit approached next, his presence quiet but official. "Talia Carter," he said. "My name is Calvin Rohr. I'm with the Department of Scientific Ethics. A new division was created this morning." He held out a document. "We'd like to name the new initiative after your mother. The Carter Program. Federal funding for young inventors from underrepresented communities. And we want you as the first chair of the National Research Board." Talia stared at the paper, then slowly nodded, not because of the offer, but because it meant her mother's name would never be spoken in a whisper again. It would be carved into buildings, sewn into futures. It would rise. That night, in a small community center across town, children sat on plastic chairs while Talia stepped onto the low stage. She held a violin, not new, not polished, but familiar. It had once belonged to her mother. She tucked it under her chin, closed her eyes, and drew the bow across the strings. The first note was soft, uncertain, but it grew, slowly, steadily, into something full, rich. The music filled the room like sunlight through broken glass. It wasn't just melody. It was memory. The sound of grief, of rage, of justice. She played not for applause but for remembrance, and when she finished, the room remained silent, not because they didn't understand, but because they did. They were listening not just with ears, but with hearts. And above that small center, a new billboard lit the skyline. It didn't show a company logo or a sleek engine. It showed two women standing side by side, Nadine and Talia Carter, framed in light. The world had tried to erase them, but tonight they were everywhere, and they were unstoppable.